for spending the time with us this morning. We're really excited to share with you SafeSpect and some of the improvements that we have within it. And so we're going to kick off with John Lohmeyer, our product owner and process owner. John, do you want to go ahead and lead out?
Yeah, absolutely. Oops.
Yeah, you're looking good. Oh, there you are. I can say you're really looking good there for a minute.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. We're excited to have this initial inspector approver training this morning. I'll start off with a quick PowerPoint. I know some of you may have already seen it, but I'm just going to go ahead and kick it off with that, and then we will go into some of the training from there. So hang on for just 1 second, actually. All right, sorry about that. All right, here we go.
We can see it. Yep.
I took it as a mission and number one priority for me and my staff to deliver a modernized inspection platform that will be a one-stop shop to do inspections with ease, promoting more efficiency and simple to use modern technology. Sitting in a small truck roadside and having to go through this many number of different things for doing a simple driver's license lookup or checking the status of a carrier, it was sad. I literally felt ashamed that that's the state of technology, given the day in, day out, like the world we live in. You know, the Netflixes, the banking apps that we have, the Facebooks, the Googles, and all of those things. If we can have all of that modern technology at our fingertips in our day-to-day life, why can't we have the similar toolkit in our work life as well? The frustration of all the inspectors across our federal employees as well as the state partners are for the right reasons. The systems are antiquated, the systems are not easy or user-friendly to use, and the data, you may get the same result if you're lucky. So how do we streamline all of this and provide a simple to use one-stop shop to ensure these software solutions that we are using are exceeding the expectations of the other tools that we use in our personal life on a daily basis? We partnered with the states to ensure we understood the problem, we understood all of the base needs each state might have. We've gathered feedback, we've gathered the inputs of this is the approach we're taking, and through that collaboration, we'll continue to make a better product. As a technology team, if we don't understand what the user needs are, then it could be the coolest product in my mind, but will be useless for the actual users. We live in the day and age where technology should be bringing efficiency rather than slowing you down. Now that you have seen the dedication, collaboration, and the hard work of not only FMCSA people, but everybody that was involved in developing a brand new inspection platform, I'm very proud to introduce SafeSpect, the brand new inspection platform from FMCSA that will allow the inspectors to be able to do all inspection-related activities in a one-stop shop.
All right, with that,
As Pav had mentioned several times in the video, really the ultimate goal here is to have a simplified one-stop shop. Doing inspections, you all know that, at a minimum, kind of no matter what system you're using, you're in at least 3 to 4, as many as 10 or 12 different systems just to do an inspection. And we're continuing to work to ensure that all you need is SafeSpect, just to be that one-stop shop to be able to do everything you need to do as an inspector without having to leave the program. We also wanted to make sure that it's device agnostic. We don't want to have to be tied to a specific PC, type of PC or device. We wanted it to be able to be used, truck side, roadside, really kind of anywhere with any device. So as long as the device has a browser, whether it's a PC, a Mac, a phone, a tablet, whatever, it will work with that device. And being device agnostic, being able to be used on multiple devices, you really it needs to be kind of seamless in that. And so, the handoffs with using these different devices are seamless. Whether you can start on one device and finish on another. For instance, kind of, if you use a mobile device, truck side. Be able to capture driver's license information, VIN information, brake measurements. You can capture that as opposed to having to write it down. You can actually capture it in the system, and then when you go back inside and finish it up on, whether you're in your vehicle or in a fixed location, you log into the system on your laptop and you can finish it up right there, and it's just like it had already been there. So best example of this is, think of like Netflix. If you're traveling and you've downloaded a movie, you're watching a movie on a plane, and then you don't finish it, you land, you get to your hotel room, you log in again on, the big TV in your hotel room. Netflix picks up right where you left off, and SafeSpect works in that same way. Automatic updates. I know this is another big pain point that we've heard from everybody, from inspectors to admins to leadership. The downtime that you have to spend just updating your device or, updating Aspen now. Really, you don't have to do that anymore with SafeSpect. Since it is a browser-based application, that the updates just happen automatically in the background. Even if you're on the system and you're performing an inspection and there's an update that is applied, it'll let you know that you just need to log off and log back in, and you'll have all the latest and greatest pieces or whatever the newest updates are automatically there. Just, again, no downtime with that. Connectivity. We all know that there are dead spots. It doesn't matter where you are. I mean, you can be in the middle of New York City and have a dead spot in between a couple of buildings for cell phone coverage. So SafeSpect is designed where it can work online or offline. Whether you're connected or not. It is cached in the browser so that you can continue to use it. Again, whether you're on or offline. And then, another big piece of this is, we wanted it to be, designed around the human, knowing that humans are different. And probably the one common thing that we did realize from all the different inspectors we spoke to around the country, whether they're federal, state partners, federal employees or state partners, everybody does inspections just a little bit different. Even though we're all trained the same, everybody does them just a little bit different. So SafeSpect is designed with that in mind. So, whether you've been doing it for, you're working on your first 32, or you've been doing it for 20 years, it's designed around you to be able to give you that flexibility to do it the order you want to do it and how you want to do it. You think about TurboTax is probably the best example I like to use here. You know, I'm not a CPA. I'm not real good with taxes, but I know when I use TurboTax, that it will guide me through, move me to the next section that I need, next logical section I need to complete in order to have a good tax return in the end. And, you know, applies all those business rules and edits to make sure that I'm doing things in the right way. SafeSpect works that way too. It's got the little next button in the bottom right that you'll see. It just kind of walks you through the process if you want to. Or if you've been doing it for a long time, kind of like, again, like TurboTax, you know, if you're a CPA and you want to use their software to help you with the edit checks in the end, you can skip around and do it in whatever order you want, and still know in the end that you're going to have a great tax return done. And the SafeSpect works in that same way. You can skip around, do it in the order that you want, and in the end, it will apply all those business edits to make sure that everything is in order before you submit. And then finally, this is probably the hardest slide for me because I don't know that I truly believe any technology is future-proof, but SafeSpect is built in an extensible modular design that allows for easy integration with other systems and the addition of features. So it really is built in a way that is easy for us to add to and, you know, continue to evolve. It's that modern stack. I'll steal Jamie's or some of our developers lingo, but it's built in a modern stack that allows it to be easily upgraded and you know, at least easily you know, just move it into the future as new things come down the road. So that's the little quick and dirty presentation, and then with that, I think we can. I guess we'll ask if there are any initial questions, and if not, we'll start kind of moving into some of the other areas. Joel?
Yep, absolutely, John. Thank you for that. I think it kind of gives us a foundational piece of some of the differences with SafeSpect compared to Aspen that will help you as we go through the presentation today. What we really want to do is we're going to kind of turn on the fire hose. I'm glad we're recording this so you can review it again. But the real secret we found to being able to use this effectively is as soon as you get the training, as soon as you're allowed, go out and start doing some inspections. That way you'll be able to retain what we shared today. And you're going to find that it's very intuitive, that it follows a similar flow that you've been using for a long period of time with North American A and B. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. We'll monitor the chat or just go off of mute and we'll be happy to answer them as we go through the demo today. So as John asked, is there any questions to begin with? Probably not on that kind of overview, but let's get down to what we came here for. First, I want to ask: has those on the call, have you set up your SafeSpect account? Do you have your login.gov established? Do you have SafeSpect icon loaded on your machine so that you can begin doing inspections, approvals, data analysis, etc.? Yes. Okay. I just looking for some feedback. Good. Perfect. All right. So if that's negative. All right. So we have yes and no. So we have some people who have and some people haven't. Maybe what we can do then, Jamie, if we just do a real quick overview of how to do that, just real quick, and then we can jump right into the real reason we're here, which is the demo.
All right, sir. Get the
Yeah, we've got a couple people that haven't. So
let's see. It's login.gov. If you haven't established a login.gov account, you're going to need to, because that's how we let you get into SafeSpect. Login.gov handles just the authentication part. That is verifying that you are you. And then once we verify that you are who you thought you were when you got out of bed this morning, then we let you into SafeSpect. So This handout was sent out to you. If you don't have it, we can provide it again. But you go to login.gov and there'll be a place that says sign up, or here's the direct shortcut to it, secure.login.gov/sign_up. And they will ask you for your email address. Your email address that we are looking for is your official government New York State email address, the one that you use for work purposes. It also needs to be the same email address that you use for your SIDLess account, in case you didn't miss this big yellow part here at the top. So you put in your email address, you click your preferred language, read the rules of use, please. It's the same as you will see on most every federal government rules of use. That is that you will use it only for official purposes, and you won't sell any information you see on there, and you won't blackmail your ex or anything like that. So read that, check the box. Once you do, click the submit button, and wait a second, or a minute or two. You will get an email message from login.gov. If after 5 minutes or so you don't get that email message, you might have typed in your email address wrong. Try again. When you do get that email address, within the email, there's this big blue box that says confirm your email address. You click that, and guess what? It takes you back to login.gov. At that point is when you create your password. Password requirements are just about the same as everything else you use for working with FMCSA. Must be 12 characters, at least 12 characters. Uppercase letters A through Z, lowercase letters A through Z, numerals 0 through 9, non-alphabetic characters. Cannot contain any part of your username. Can't contain any part of the application name either. So, don't make it my SafeSpect password. That won't work. And they always encourage you to make it different from your other accounts, because we don't want to have access to your bank account. Okay, once you do that, one nifty thing about login.go is as you're typing your password, it has this little gauge that pops up across here. It tells you how strong your password is. And so try to get at least 3 bars, 4 is even better. And you click continue. Okay, once you've got that established, we require, and login.go requires at least 1 second layer of security. It's called multi-factor authentication. You've seen this, you do this probably with your bank accounts, lots of other things. We only require you to set up 1 extra, but we recommend you do at least 2. That way you got a fallback if something is broken. If you have an ID card that has a chip built into it, these work great. You don't have to even type in your password. You just slip the card in and it prompts you to use your military or your government ID, and boom, it just clicks right in there. Authentication application is another option. There are several out there. There's 2 free ones that I'm aware of that work really well. There's the Google authentication application and the Microsoft authentication application. I use those both interchangeably. They work really well. An even more secure is a security key. It's a little device that you carry with you. It either generates a random number for you to input, or it has a fingerprint reader on it. Those are real handy. They cost somewhere around $100 each, so they're cool. And then if you're using your phone or a laptop, like a iPad-like device, you can use the face or touchpad unlock. Those also work very well. Little bit less secure, but probably the one that most people will use the most is the text message sent to your phone. That works really well. It's a little bit less secure in that somebody could snatch your phone away from you and see all this super secret government stuff inside SafeSpect. Phone call works the same way, except you hear an automated voice give you the numbers instead of reading it. And then backup codes is the least least desired one. It's what it literally is, what it says here. It's a list of 10 codes. You either print it out or save it somewhere, and every time you log in, you use one of those codes. When you get through those first 10 codes, you got to request 10 more. It's a real pain. So get your secondary authentication application and get that done. If you're using your ID card with the chip built in, the instructions are on this document also. So, any questions on login.gov?
Hey, Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is
We
Rich
can hear you,
Wonderman.
nothing in the chat, so I think that was very helpful.
Okay,
Folks, let's go ahead and do it.
I think most of the
Go ahead.
users on this account are already set up, or on this call, are already set
Okay.
up in the system.
Okay, if that's the
We were
case,
copied
then
beforehand. I'm looking at
we
everybody
will
right
move on.
now.
Okay,
All right,
good.
then.
I just had a few that didn't. How about setting up a icon on your computer? Are you comfortable to be able to share that with others so we could just go on to the demo? Or would you like to do a quick demo on how to set up a SafeSpect icon on your computer?
We can do a quick demo. I mean, it takes 2 seconds, right?
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be shorter than what it was how to get on to SafeSpect. So absolutely.
Yeah. I'll even cut out a few of my dad jokes. Okay. How to create a
Thank
SafeSpect
you.
shortcut. It's really easy, because SafeSpect is a completely web-based application. There is nothing to install, so there won't be an icon created for you. So what we do is give you instructions on how to create your own. You find a clear space on your computer's desktop. I prefer to have a nice clean desktop, but it doesn't look that way anymore. You right-click somewhere on the desktop, and the context menu will come up. Everyone's context menu will look a little different, but near the bottom, there will always be a choice that says New. You click on New or hover over New, the secondary context menu pops up. Again, everyone's will look different, but near the top, it will say Shortcut. So you right-click New Shortcut. This form pops up. It says, what would you like to create a shortcut for? And you want to type in the name. You don't want to browse. You'll get aggravated, you'll get irritated, and you'll go home, take it out on the family. You don't want to do that. You want to type it in. The URL is https://SafeSpect, there is a T on the end, .fmcsa.dot.gov. So when you type it in, it should look like this. Here, safespect.fmcsa.dot.gov, and you click the next button. After you do that, it says, what would you like to name it? This is anything you would like to name it. We recommend you type in FMCSA SafeSpect. Name it anything you want, just keep it clean, and then click the finish button. Depending on what your default browser is, it will create a shortcut that either looks like the Chrome icon, the SafeSpect, the Microsoft Edge icon, or the Mozilla Firefox icon. Alternate way to do it is if you open your browser and go ahead and type in the URL for SafeSpect. When the landing page appears, up in the address bar, there will be a little padlock-like looking icon. When you see that, you can take that icon, that padlock, you click on it and just drag it to your desktop somewhere, and it creates the icon. The only difference being when you do it this way, it will say FMCSA inspection platform rather than FMCSA SafeSpect. If you don't want to keep that, you can right click on that icon and choose rename and call it FMCSA SafeSpect. So I'll give you a quick demo on that here real quick. There's a nice clear desktop. I'll right click, new, shortcut, HTTPS, SafeSpect, fmcsa.dot.gov. Click next. I'm going to call it FMCSA SafeSpect. And it must have shown up over here on my other desktop, my other browser. There it is. He got hidden.
I was going to say, I get on a different monitor.
Yeah. And buried itself in there too. So there it is. Now, we've also provided your agency with the icon that we use. If you want to use our icon, make it easier to find, you right click and choose properties. Click change the icon and then browse for wherever you saved it on your computer. I saved it down here in my temp folder right here. It's called SafeSpect.ico. I click on that, I click open, and it looks like a bus and a truck. Surprise, surprise. Click OK, click apply, and OK, and now you have a SafeSpect icon. The other method I mentioned would be, I've got my browser open here, and if I go to SafeSpect, once that landing page comes up, you see the little padlock here. Click on that, just drag it over, and it created that icon for me. It goes ahead and puts the DOT logo on there and that name, and I could rename it SafeSpect. Oops. Like that. Okay. Any questions? Any answers?
No questions in chat. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that.
All right. Back
All
at
right.
you.
Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and get to the highlight of our day. And Mr. Smoot, John Smoot, who has decades of experience with inspections from a state, a local perspective, and now is with us at FMCSA, will drive this demonstration. So, Mr. Smoot, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. No, it's morning. It's still morning.
It is morning.
I have to check. It is Monday. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Lovely. We're going to spend the next 50 minutes or so walking through the software, and I am going to pause in certain areas and move faster in some others. I'm not going to bore you to death with things that you know. We're going to kind of mostly deal with the nuances. So I'm going to log out real quick. And this is the logon screen where you log in with login.gov. And as you have already discussed, I'm going to be using a staging environment. The URL for what I'm using is just a little bit different than the URL you all were identified to put on your computers. The only difference is I'm using some test data and not production data. So when you utilize the production version, as soon as you click submit, the data goes into the repository, the database. And since we're going to be doing all that stuff, then we don't want to be doing that here. So we're going to use this test environment. So that means we're not going to be hitting SIDless directly. In the production version, we hit SIDless directly for you. We're going to be hitting a SIDless test database. Does the same thing. We're just not going to have real-time data, no PII stuff. Secondly, when we do the vehicle search, we're hitting a test database as well for the motor carrier data, but we'll talk about that more when we get there. So I'm going to log on.gov, and you can log on with your email address and password as you normally do. I'm going to actually use my government ID to log on, so streamlines it for us a little bit. But you'll just use your email address and password just like you always have. I think Jamie mentioned that you want your email address for login.gov to be the same as your SIDLIS account for now, because again, we're going to run SIDLIS for you. So the first thing I'll point out here is that this software is role based, ROLE, and that's really important because as state agencies, you guys have a lot of ability to provide tools to your users that they may or may not need, take away things that they don't need, and the ability to really set up the environment in a lot of ways to your benefit. So when we look at this first, you see I've got an agency admin role. Every agency will have an agency admin that does a lot of the setup, controls a bunch of things. We'll talk about that later. I've got an approver row. Right now, every inspection has to be approved by somebody. The data queue analyst row, I got division administrator row, and then the inspector row, where we're going to spend most of our time this morning. Getting a high level view here. This is I call it the landing page, the home page is home page. It shows the most recent 6 inspections that are not approved, that have not been submitted and approved. We'll show you where you see your approved inspections in a minute. These are basically inspections that need work. At the top, you can see it tells me I've got 0 inspections today. I've got 4 pending that need work. I haven't been submitted. I've got 10 that I've done for this month. So just kind of a high level view. You'll notice on these couple of things about these 6. We've got a few here for a reason. This one right here was done in offline mode. That little icon there tells you that it was done in offline mode, and it's important to know that the software will work offline. The only time you have to have internet connectivity is really 2 times. The first time you log on to SafeSpect, you need internet connectivity. One of the reasons is because it's going to download some stuff to your cache. It's going to load down a production database that's a kind of a truncated database, but it's going to at least have stuff on it that has federal out of service orders on motor carriers, so you don't miss those. So you'll need to be able to log on with the internet first time to make sure all that stuff is downloaded. Secondly, if you're working offline, you didn't complete the inspections completely, but the thing that you have to do to log back on, or the things you have to do to actually get them to submit into the system, is log back on. Obviously, if you're offline, the inspection is not going to the database because you're offline. But once you do log back on with an internet connection, you have to do nothing. All of those offline inspections that were completed are recognized by the software as being completed and offline and not transmitted yet. So they will automatically be transferred without you having to do anything, as long as you have completed them right offline. So that tells me we're offline. The other thing I like to show here is this little trash can. This inspection is in draft mode, and we'll talk more about modes in a minute. As long as an inspection has not been submitted, you can delete it. So if you get in the production version and you want to play with the software a little bit, you want to do some searches and see what it actually does before you actually start doing a new inspection, you can do anything you want in the production version, testing the data, trying it out, as long as you don't hit submit. Once you hit submit, again, it goes into the repository. It's an official record, so we do not want to hit submit on bogus data. So as long as you hit this trash can and remove the inspection before you hit submit, we're good to go. You'll notice down here on this draft inspection that it does not have the trash can next to it. And the reason for that is this inspection has been submitted and I pulled it back for whatever reason. Maybe I pulled it back because I had a carrier out of service for brakes and he fixed his brakes. So I opened it back up to modify the critical violations being repaired at the scene. So once it's been submitted, we cannot delete it then because it's in the repository. It's an official record. The one thing I will mention here that anytime you make a change to an inspection, there's an audit trail that's built. So anything that changes on it, it builds that audit trail, and that audit trail is part of the downloads that you can download later. The next one is this rejected category, and that means that I've submitted this inspection, it got to my approver, me, and then I rejected it for whatever reason, and we'll look at that process in a little bit. So we're just going to again walk through software a little bit. That's a lot about the desktop. I'll talk about the this temporary number in a little bit. You can see we've got the current version here, and that's another big advantage. I know John mentioned that one of the big advantages is that you don't have to touch your computer every time a new version comes out, like you did with Aspen. It will automatically be pushed to your computer if you're online. And if you are online working on an inspection, it will just simply tell you, hey, John, there's a new version available. When you're finished doing whatever, log off, log back on, and you'll be updated. Now, that's not exactly the message it gives you, but it's something like that. So that's a big advantage. You'll always have the current version. This just tells me I've got internet connectivity, and this tells me I'm logged in as an inspector because, as you saw, I have multiple rows. As we go to the right, you can set up the software to have the dark background mode, or the light background mode. And this is actually a setting I'll show you in a few minutes. If you want to have your computer default to this view, that's one of those inspector settings that you can do automatically and not have to worry about it. Notifications, it'll send notifications, and then this little help icon to the right there. This is basically just hyperlinks that your administrator can build for you. It's administrator driven, and it's just to give you the opportunity, or everything in one place kind of principle. Gives you the opportunity to have these hyperlinks built in, things that you might use to help you work through your inspections. You don't have to leave the software. You don't have to type in the URL every time. You just simply click on that high link and it opens it up in a new tab. And then when you are done with it, you just click that tab and you're good to go. So an advantage again that gets a lot of these tools there for you that you might use during your inspections, and that's built by your administrators, so it can be customized to your agency, your state. If you've got size and weight enforcement, and you've got size and weight permits that your transportation cabinet or whoever manages, and they have a site for that, then you can just click on that link in here and go straight to it with no issues. To the right of that is the things that we already looked at. Switch row, we've already been there. Log out, and then lastly, this settings here, and you can actually locate the settings here or actually down here as well. But these are a couple of nuances, and this is a big one. First, your admin can put in your fixed locations. Jamie has probably already put yours in for you to help you get started, but later on, the admin can modify, edit, change, add, delete. But the other cool thing is the inspectors can add their own roadside inspection locations. For example, if you want to do inspections at a specific location every day, and you want to set that location as a default, maybe you've got a complaint area that you're working for a month, and you want to be able to work that and set up that location so that you don't have to type it in or look for it every time, then you can do that. So you can create those locations. You can see I've created a couple here already. You can make it a default location. I've done that. You can change the default location to one of your other ones there if you want. And then lastly is its preferences for now. This is where I can set my dark or light theme so the computer boots up in one of those themes for me. We'll talk more about this inspection statuses in a minute. But right now there's basically 4 statuses. There's approved, draft, rejected, and submitted. And we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go through here, and I'll show you where this comes into play. But basically, this allows you to set up the default of how that search inspection list will look for you. And then lastly, this is where you can set up the way that you have your violation sort. A lot of people like to have a certain one. Some people like the unit number. Some people like it the violation code, so on and so forth. Maybe the out of service, but it just kind of allows you to customize how you want the violations sorted on your inspection report. There'll be more custom things coming in the near future that you can do, because it is a work in progress, and we continue to can do things really on a weekly basis, but releasing updates usually about every 2 weeks, depending on what's going on. To the other part of this screen here, we'll see that there's 3 areas that are grayed out: carriers, drivers, and vehicles. These are pre-screen functionalities that's soon to come. Basically, it just gives you the opportunity to screen for a carrier, screen on a driver, or screen on a vehicle. For example, let's say maybe you've got a carrier stop that has a very low SS score, and you're not going to inspect them, but while you've got them stopped for maybe a speeding ticket on the driver, you decide to do a check on the driver, and then you do a check on the driver, and he comes back with prohibited status. So now you decided you want to do an inspection on this driver, so you can just start the inspection from there. So same thing with the vehicle. These will be available very soon, so you can do those pre-inspection or pre-screening before you start an inspection. And then it says inspection list. This is all of my inspections, and now you'll see that you see my approved inspections. This is that inspection list where I talked about the default, and you can set it up to default to what you want to show. Maybe you don't want it to show anything but the approved. Then you can set it up to default to do that. You can always change it, of course, as you go through here. Neat things here, you can search for an inspection number. And the other thing that you can do is you can even type in a prefix and type in and just search for the prefix. Like if I type in US, it searches off those first 2 digits of my inspection number, because these are set by your state. We're doing New York today, so the first 2 letters of yours would be NY, and then the other 6 digits are set up by your administrator and how they want set up in the last 4. But it gives you an opportunity to progressively search. So if I wanted to search for US HQ 0, let's do, well, I want to 0000015. It's just, I did probably put in too many zeros. That's the trouble with zeros. They're hard to count. Let's just do this. Let's just do US quarters. And you can see, but if you get them to get the numbers right, it'll search for that. You can search for a DOT number. You can search for by VIN, or you can search by driver's license number. We've talked about adding some other search functionality as well down the road, and that'll happen. Over to the right, you can see the pencil, which means that inspection has been rejected. So the pencil's out. I can open that up and edit it and walk through the wizard we'll talk about in a little bit. Or this icon, the little eyeball icon, means I can open it up in a high-level view or paper view. But because it's been approved, I can't edit it without additional authorization. A data queue analyst could edit an approved inspection. An approver or supervisor can edit an approved inspection. For the inspector to approve it, he has to be given authority by his supervisor or somebody like that. So that's your data. That's your work, your inspection stuff. Just yours. That's not does not have all the stuff that's in the repository. We'll talk more about that when we talk about PIQ. The other nice thing is everything in the software will be editable, and everything in this report will be downloadable. So if you want to do research and stuff, you'll be able to get that information. The other thing that we've added for you just real quickly, though, is the typical Aspen canned report. Because a lot of agencies use this and ask their officers to send it to them on a weekly or monthly basis. It's just basically your data again for a period of time that you specify, so that you can get your stuff, number of inspections, out of service, all that kind of thing. So you're used to seeing that. That's nothing new, but having everything else queryable is new to you. We already talked about settings and log out that makes sense. Go up here to the home screen. You can minimize the size of the sidebar if you want, typical Windows stuff. And as we get ready to start inspection, do 2 things, and we're going to take a pause. We can enter a DOT number here and do our search for our carrier. We can enter an inspection without a DOT number. If we've got a guy that doesn't have a DOT number, it will ask us why we're doing an inspection without a DOT number. Why did this guy not have one? The other neat thing about the software is there's going to be a lot of business edits that you've not seen before. And this is one that's actually not there yet, but it's coming. That if you start an inspection and complete an inspection without a DOT number, and the software identifies that the carrier was in an interstate trip by the origin and destination, then the software is going to be expecting to see a violation for a motor carrier operating in interstate commerce without a DOT number. And if there's not a violation there, the software will just prompt you at the end of it when you start to click submit and say, hey, John, did you mean to add this violation? So again, there's going to be more than one business edit that you're not used to seeing to help with data quality, to help you as you go through the inspection to make sure that we don't miss stuff, and to make sure that we're in line with Ops Policy 14 and out of service criteria and those things. So, Joe, I'm going to pause for just a couple of seconds and see if we got any questions so far. Probably not, but let me catch
Nothing
my
in
breath.
chat, but yeah, let's give them an opportunity. Any questions so far, folks?
Joe, the only thing I noticed was we don't have any locations already pre-populated in our inspection software.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I've looked at them. The information I was provided didn't fit what was requested, and you had like 700 and something fixed locations, and so
Wow.
I've we'll discuss that later. How about that?
Yeah, we'll work with who. If it's you, is it Richard?
Yeah, it's Richard. It'd either be Richard or Adrian.
Let's after this, you and I or Jamie, or you and Jamie let's talk offline, and we can definitely help work together on that. That's just one of those things that we found when we got the actual information.
Okay.
But yeah, we will definitely show you how you can do the fixed locations.
Hey, Joel, I'm sorry. John, I meant. John, under the tab for the hyperlinks, does it come standard with certain FMCSA hyperlinks already in, or do they have to add everything they want?
Jamie, I think the production version has some, but for the most part, agencies are going to want to customize it based on what they utilize. But I think it does have basically the list that I showed you, that I had set up originally. But easily customizable, and agencies will want to customize it to themselves.
Yeah. I don't think the agencies can remove anything we already put on there, but they can certainly add.
And if they want something removed, then we could
Yeah.
do that. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
again, they were set up based on what I utilized originally, quite frankly.
Okay, thank you.
No, good question. Thank you. All right, moving on. So we're going to pre-screen this carrier, and again, I'm using a test database, but I'm going to use this carrier here. The neat thing is again, when you're online, you're going to have real-time access to a real-time production database. If you're offline, there's that stored database that's on your system. Now, it doesn't have the entire motor carrier database. It's a very huge file, as you can imagine, but we are storing basic carrier information, including this federal out of service stuff. So even if you're offline, if your database is up to date, you should not miss federal out of service orders. The key is what I just said, up to date. If you work offline a lot, and let's just say you work offline and maybe you're offline for days at a time, I hope not. But if you are, you'll want to make sure that you do try to gain internet connectivity sometime within a day at the most, I would say, because of two reasons. One, you want to keep this offline database current, but two, remember, any inspection that you do in offline functionality hasn't actually been sent to the repository even though you've completed it and hit submit offline, it doesn't go to the repository until you've got internet connectivity. But you can see here that in this database, I've pulled down this motor carrier. He's got a federal out of service order. It gives us the mixed SIP stamp. It's got all the listing of the stamps like it did in Query Central for us. And we can select the one that he is in violation for. We can select a level of an inspection. We can tell the software that, yes, we want to add this violation to him. It opens up the violation tool with that one specific violation handy. And we're going to talk more about this violation stuff later on. I put on the violation. Again, we'll talk more about this later on in detail. And it simply adds that out of service violation. You can see it's right there. Adds that out of service violation on that motor carrier and prompts me to do that right away. There'll be other prompts later on down the road. For example, a prohibited driver. Later on, it will prompt you for that. But you can see I've got several pieces of information here. We're still working together some connectivity with IFTA. So right now that information is not available, but it does give us the inspection value, safety rating, the MCS 150 date, which is important for us. And that is, again, current data. And then the UCR data, as you can see, is real time. We're actually hitting the UCR database directly, not pulling it out of Safer or someplace else. It's hitting the direct database. So that's important. To the top up here, you can see where I can change the carrier. Remember that violation there, by the way. So I'm going to tell it I want to change carrier, and it says, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. So I'll type in a new carrier number, and I'll change it to Doug Andrus. And when I do that, you'll see that the carrier will change to Doug Andrus, and it will populate his data. And the neat thing it also do is it will do away with that violation. That violation is gone. That violation was associated with the carrier. So when I change carrier software, it says, hey, John, you need to get rid of this violation. Let me do it for you. So now I've got Doug Anders. I've got all of his information, which has changed. And if I click on this little carrier details button up here, this is all the information that you used to have to leave the software and go to Query Central to get. So again, putting everything in one place for you. We kind of highlight some things that as visual alerts for you. This guy's got a high crash indicator, comes in the alert category, so we just kind of throw some shading on that just to make it jump out at you. But again, this is all that stuff that you used to have to go to Query Central to get, and it's available because it's being pulled down from the real-time database. If you're offline, you may not have as much as we do right here because the offline database doesn't store as much. But still, for the most part, you will get a lot of information. We can do a previous inspection query. Now here, we are hitting the entire repository. This is not just your work. This is everybody's work. As soon as you hit submit, as soon as anybody hits submit, the inspection goes straight to the SafeSpect repository, for lack of a better word. All the inspections that are done today, last week, a year and a half ago, whether they were in Aspen, third-party softwares, or whatever, they're in that repository. So you can do previous inspection query on this motor carrier for the last couple of years, basically. And again, that's everybody's stuff, not just what you did. I can put notes on the inspection, and it keeps track of the notes for you. And right now you can't print them, but you will be able to soon. We'll talk more about the notes in a little bit. And you can add a co-inspector. Maybe you're doing bus inspections and you need to add a co-inspector. Maybe you're that guy that just finished North American Standard School and you've got to do your first 32 inspections as a co-inspector. So the guy that's doing the inspection and getting credit for it while you do the work, you can go down as a co-inspector on his inspection. And now again, that stuff can be queried out. So you can query it out, make sure he did his 32, do your data quality, do your reports, and that type of thing. So it's a lot easier for agencies now, because I know when we modified Ops Policy 4, and I chaired that subcommittee several years ago, a lot of agencies were concerned at how they were going to keep track of their co-inspector first 32 inspections. So now you got a way to do that. You can add attachments. This, children, is brand new. This was put out, I believe, Jamie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this weekend. I have not even played with it yet, but you can see, you can click, you can navigate to it to attach photos, videos, those types of things. Again, brand new functionality. You are the first to see it. I don't even know if Jamie's seen it yet. You can see, you can add docs, DLC, text, PDF, so on and so forth, and the maximum size is a megabyte. So neat stuff. What else? Up at the top, you can see the running time for 6:54. We've been working on this for 6 minutes and 58 seconds. Here's a temporary number. The software doesn't create a final number until you hit submit. There's multiple reasons for that, but one is, remember, we're in draft mode. We can delete this thing until we hit submit it. So if we create that final number now, then we have the reality that we might lose numbers, and people like to have the numbers in sequential order. Some people, it's just they can't stand to not have the numbers in sequential order. So we don't create the final number until at the end, and we'll show you that when we get there. Date and time, talk about that just a second, and then we'll pause again. You can change the time, back it up to 20 minutes. For example, you stop at a truck, you want to secure them, gives you that time to get out of your cruiser, go up, make sure everything's copacetic, secure them, get their ID, whatever you need to get, make sure they're good to go. Go back to your cruiser, start the inspection. You decide you want to inspect them, and 10 minutes have went by, 15 minutes have went by, so you can back the time up to the time that you actually stopped them. Like I said, inspection times are important, should relate to what the driver has on his ELD as being out for an inspection. The other thing is the time zone, and you can adjust the time zone based on what your time zone is. Kentucky, where I am at today, is a lovely state, and we have Central Time, and we have God's time, which is Eastern Time. But we could very easily be in two different time zones in a short period of time. And since the software is grabbing your date and time from your computer settings, and if it doesn't change, which most computers aren't set to change, then we want to make sure that we get the time zone correct based on where you are. As a matter of fact, at the very end of the inspection, you'll see when we get there, the software is going to say, hey, please check the date and time. And all you got to do is click on it. It's just a reminder for you to go check your time and make sure that everything is copacetic there, because the time stuff is very important, and that's where we've seen issues in old software. I'm going to pause, Joel.
We have some questions for you.
I thought we might.
Yes. If you add an attachment, say a picture, can anyone see that picture? Any agency looking up past reports, for example?
That is a great question. And
It sure is.
It is attached to the inspection. And like I told you, I don't know for sure right now how that's going to work, because we just got this functionality involved just the other day. Let's go in here and see if I can find something actually. Let's do this. By the way,
go ahead.
By the way, Joe, I've done my E2 voucher. Have you?
Yes, sir.
All right, I am going to attach my vehicle report. This is the vehicle report that I have to do, and we'll see. Oh, it's over 1 meg because it happens to have a copy of the auto theft report and a copy of the internal government auto theft report. So it became a fairly large file. So let's just add the theft report in itself. Yes, that is correct. I had a government vehicle stolen a few weeks ago. Believe it or not, with government tags. Moral of the story is, if you have a Hyundai, take it to your hotel room with you. Don't leave it in the parking lot. So we've added attachments. We will look at that, but that's a great question. And when we get to the end of the inspection, we'll look at it in the approver role and see if in the approver role I can see it. We'll do a little testing while we're here. Next question.
All right. Let's see here. The other one, is there a timeout that occurs when away from the site for too long? If so, what is the time limit and what information is saved? That's a great
Everything
question
is
again.
saved. First, everything is
Yep.
saved. When you put data in, you're putting it directly in the online repository. So everything is saved. If I was to close this inspection right now, or my computer was to crash on me right now, and I go open it up on a different inspection or on a different computer, everything that I've got in this is going to be there. So that's the huge and most important answer. Jamie, I'm going to let you deal with the time thing.
Okay, on the time. Within SafeSpect itself, there is no timeout built in. Any timeout that occurs is happening from login.gov. I spoke to login.gov about it. They said they don't necessarily have a timeout either. However, we have seen the opposite. It seems to time out maybe 15 minutes of no activity on the screen. Or if you've been using it all day long, keeping it fairly active, it may just decide to disconnect you after about 6 hours without any warning.
I hope that answers the question on that.
Probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but that's
no. But it's more of login.gov we found than SafeSpect.
Yeah,
so
I'd say that
different.
I've just not seen any issues myself, and I'm in and out of it and multitasking quite a bit. So I haven't had any issues, but I'll leave it open for sometimes a couple of hours and not touch it and come back and it's still there. So, um, and one of the reasons I like Jamie is answer there is because he's talked to login.gov a little bit more, and it's just it's a login.gov issue more so than SafeSpect, I think. What else?
Yeah.
Just real quick on the attachment. I believe we are testing it in our staging environment right now. It has not been released to production yet. So that's why you may not see it on the production on your side, New York, and that's why John is seeing it here because we're using it in our test environment. So we're giving you a sneak preview of what we're testing right now, and that will become live in the production environment in the coming weeks.
Great point, John. Thank you.
Yeah, coming attractions. Let's see. Oh, I think there was one other question in chat that we had here. I got to go back because we kind of missed it. We got going. Larry brought it up. I don't have the updated version. Was that in reference to the attachment icon, Larry?
Yeah, we have version 2.3.3, and we're looking at your screen, and it's 2.3.4. So I think you guys I think that's
we're in
and again, that's the test environment difference between that and production. We test everything very thoroughly before we push it out. So you'll get that later version as it gets pushed out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so you like I said, you all are the first to see this attachment button, and quite honestly, I had not seen it until I just got to it. So neat stuff. We're constantly pushing stuff. The developers constantly working on items that we have a backlog list of things that we want to do. So it's good to see that, quite frankly. All right, moving on. At the top, you'll see there's 5 tabs here that basically have sub-tabs with them as well. You can do stuff in order. I'm a kind of a procedural guy. I don't like to do stuff in order, but you can also do stuff out of order. For example, if I want to go in here and put in a vehicle, I can do that. Right now, we're searching vehicles through a database called VPIC. It's a manufacturer database. It checks the VIN, does basically VIN check on it, brings in certain information for you, and allows you to enter the vehicle information, with a lot of it being populated from VPIC. We do not populate the GVWR for you. We want you to grab that from the vehicle itself, the VIN plate and such, because the GVWR is going to be used as a business edits as well to help verify the CDL and things going down the road. If it is an estimated GVWR, there's this estimated GVWR down here, and all that does basically, if you click on that, it turns off the business edit because we can't run business edits off of things that's estimated, obviously. So we want you to grab the correct GVWR for the truck and the trailer, and then we'll tell you that we want you to tell us that all information looks good. You've looked at it, you've verified everything is good, you hit save, and now I've got my vehicle in there. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. And you see that everything here now up at the top left of that is turned red. These are the business edits that's associated with it. It says, hey, you know, everything's good. You can do the vehicle whenever you want, but there's things back here like this cargo tab that's red in color that you haven't completed yet. And you'll see that there's 5 things here that are red in color that this field is required. Shipper name, shipping paper number is not required because you may not have a shipper and shipping paper number. But the other stuff is required, and you can enter that on there. And then when I go to the next screen, you see now everything there is turned green. And then when I go to this next screen, we'll talk about location for a minute. Remember, I had set a default location earlier, so my default location is automatically set for me. I don't have to do anything. I am on live version here right now, so if I click on current location, it's going to pull in my current location, which is right there. That is where I live. I am working from home today, so you now know where I live. Send Christmas cards. It's got the lat long, all that information. If I need to edit the information, I can edit it or I can add it manually. We'd prefer, you know, the best thing to do if you got locations that you're at all the time is put them in your favorite locations. But if you stop a truck at a location and your map functionality won't work, because there are a couple of things that would keep this identification from working. That one being if your hardware is set up to not allow your location to be identified. Secondly, if your browser is set up to not allow your location to be identified, then it's not going to identify it. You won't see the red truck. Your browser could be set up to allow you to answer that question every time it's looking for it, and then you could answer that each individual time. And I think Jamie created a fairly nice cheat sheet, help sheet that helps talk about the setting those preferences on your software. But so the live version with the internet connectivity works great. We do again want you to accept the location. The one instance or one issue that we have seen, and this just makes sense, is if you're working off of a MiFi and you're in one of those areas where the MiFi may be pinging off 2 or 3 different towers back to back, and it may get your location off by even a mile, depending on how it's pinging the location. So we want you to verify that the location is correct. If it's not, if it pinged it here and in reality you actually say you're right there, then you can change that location by double clicking on it just like I did there, and it will move it. So we want you to verify the location. If you're using the internet connectivity, click accept it and everything's good. You can select from the fixed locations, and like I don't have any in here right now, or you can select from your favorite locations that you've put in. And you can see I've got like 2 different locations in there that I've built as favorite. But the inspector on the roadside can build these himself. That doesn't have to be built by the administrator. The administrator does the fixed, the inspector does the favorites. And then again, you can set them to default. So this is some functionality that people had asked for, and it is in production. Notice the levels turned to green. I clicked on that button. Then we're going to go to these preliminary questions. And there's a couple of nuances here. This first one is the reason for the inspection. This is the primary reason you stopped the vehicle. Was it an e-screen inspection? And if it was, what clearance system did you use? What technology did you use? What was your primary reason for stopping this truck? Was it a tire screening functionality? And if it was, then you just select that one. It's for the ITD community and gathering information on functionality and systems that are working. Maybe it's not an e-screen inspection, And if it's not, for me, you can see there's 3 different methods here. I turned border enforcement on the other day to show it to somebody when we were training somebody that actually has a border, and you can turn that off. If you don't have a foreign border, then you can turn that off, and your inspectors won't even see that in the administrative role. Traffic enforcement is one of those tools to help you with if you do your CVSP or your CVSP writer has to get all this data. Traffic enforcement inspections is one of those things that you write in your commercial vehicle safety plan, how many you're going to do, that type of thing. So if we select that this is a traffic enforcement inspection, the software is going to expect to see a traffic enforcement violation, and vice versa. If you put a traffic enforcement violation on the safety and it doesn't see traffic enforcement checked, it'll ask you at the end, do you want to check that or not? So again, this is to help with data quality, help with you writing your commercial vehicle safety plan and such. Or maybe it's just a random inspection and you're stopping every 3rd green truck today, and so they're just random inspections from the roadside, so there is no specific reason, and then you can select other. To the right of that are these inspection inclusions, and these are to provide you tools. For example, maybe you're an agency that collects size and weight data on your inspections. This is another administrative setting. You can turn that off so that people won't see that if you don't want them to. But if you are one of those agencies that has that set, then you click on this, it'll open up the size and weight tool. Same with alcohol controlled substance. Uh, Performance-based brake testing. If you're an agency that utilizes performance-based brake testing, you see I clicked on it. If I go up to the vehicle, you'll see it just opened up the tab to add that PBBT data. I want you to say that 3 times real quick. PBBT. If I turn it off, then that sub-tab just disappears. So again, it just gives us the opportunity to tell us things that we may or may not need. Hazardous materials. We'll come back to that in a second. Post-crash is something you're used to seeing, but there are a couple of new questions here, like was the inspection completed at the scene? What was the crash report number? And was it a fatal injury or property damage crash? Gathering additional crash data so that we can do what we need to do and eliminate crashes. And then drug interdiction gives us the opportunity to tell us how many people we arrested on this drug interdiction, that type of thing. So that's what that's there for. That's not new either. And then lastly, the hazmat screen. Come back to that. When I clicked on hazmat, so it populates up here. Jamie, take a note. You'll see that when I open up the hazmat screen, it gives me the opportunity to enter all that hazmat data. And I'm not a hazmat person, but I'm going to throw some stuff in here to show you 1 or 2 nuances. It's got the UNNA number. If I type in the UN number, it populates the proper shipping name. If it's one of those UNNA numbers, I need to grab one of those, Jamie, that has multiple shipping names, then this will turn into a drop-down list so that you can select the proper shipping name if it has multiple ones. Again, I'm not a hazmat guru by any means. Again, you can add shipper information. Go ahead.
Yeah, track 12, is it 1203 diesel
I don't
fuel?
know.
And
No, I can't
All right.
remember. But anyway,
Somebody knows one.
Yeah, somebody knows one. You can add shipper information if you collect that as an agency. You can turn that off as well. And then it's got the question about the hazardous materials safety permit. Does the commodity require one? Do they have one in their possession? And then you can add up to 6 different items of hazmat, where in Aspen you can do 3. You can do up to 6 here now. So that's a hazmat stuff. I can tell you this. We talked to somebody that is a hazmat guru over the past week while we were at CVSA, and we're going to be adding some more tweaks and cool stuff to hazmat in the coming weeks, because again, I'm not a hazmat specialist. I talked to a few people. Jamie's definitely not a hazmat specialist, although, well, never mind. But we will be adding some additional functionality going forward.
If you'll go back to that we've had 2 suggestions put in 1993.
1993.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still not showing it.
Still not showing.
Now you got it. Now you got drop down.
There we go with in a number. So now you got so you can grab those. So this is a fairly new fix. Again, when we first developed it, we didn't have the drop down list because, quite frankly, I did not know that there were multiple proper shipping names on some commodities. So excellent. So that we
Is
got
this is this new to the staging environment? I'm just not sure if it's in the production environment yet. I just don't want to. I don't want to be showing them talking too much about it if they don't have access to it
I
yet.
think this is already in production.
I think
Okay.
it is. Yeah, but here's the key. If I show you neat stuff that when you go to the software you can't see, it's because we haven't pushed it or the developer hasn't pushed it to production. We're still doing testing, and I do so much. I sometimes can't remember what we've pushed and what we haven't. So I apologize if I show you something that's not there yet. But if I do, that means Christmas is coming. And it's right down the road this week in September, so Christmas is almost here. All right, thanks, John. No, that's a good point.
Christmas displays are out already.
Yeah,
we do have a couple of questions.
all right.
I guess we got some from we were talking about VINs, but can you show us the bulk tab?
Hazmat and bulk. Yep.
There we go.
And we do have some requested changes for this coming up real soon.
Yep. What else, Joe?
Yeah, let's see here. Does EROD sync up to SafeSpect, or do we still need to use a separate application?
We'll get there in just a few minutes. Great question. I like
Absolutely.
people that think
Yep.
ahead, and we'll talk about that in a minute, actually.
Yep. And then the next one is we get many CMVs with missing VIN tags and must decode on NHTSA's VIN check. Is that acceptable?
Another great question. Another great question.
Acceptable for GVWR.
Yeah, another great question. Hold that thought, and I'll show you something about VIN in a minute and GVWR. Sorry, Joe, I cut you off there because I was answering the question before we finished. So let's go to vehicle then.
Go ahead.
So on the vehicle, we added this and we got this inner brake. I need to go back. I got ahead of myself. So on the levels are important as well. For example, we got level 1, and when level 1 you see inner brake data. But if I go back and change this to a level 3 and then go back to the vehicle, you'll notice that the inner brake data disappears. So selecting the levels also sets parameters of things that we may or may not need. You can see that I'm deactivated on level 6. I don't have myself set up to do a level 6. So I can't see a level 6 information. But if I was level 6 certified, then it would open up a tab up here to enter that level 6 information. So again, this is those administrator settings that you can add to allow your inspectors to have access to that. Maybe you're an agency, I don't know, that has people that only do level 3s. And you can set them up so that the only thing that they ever see is the level 3 activation button. All right. There are certain business edits that don't allow vehicle violations on a level 3. So a lot of these business edits are built in. We will again go back to vehicle just for a second, and we can see that I don't see any brake data there, but I'm going to go back and change it to a level 1 because we do want to do a level 1 so I can show you all the functionality, and now my inner brake data comes back. I can do previous inspection queries on the vehicle just like I did the carrier. And again, this is across the entire database, not just my data. I can edit it or I can remove it from the inspection altogether. I can also add vehicles manually. Over here, and this is where I'm going to get to the VIN thing. Over here, I can add a vehicle. I can do it manually, and I can just go in here and do what I need to do. I'm going to make it an intermodal chassis and watch what happens to the screen. It changes to what you're used to having to gather. If I make it chassis owned by the motor carrier, obviously that intermodal chassis stuff goes away. But so I'll enter the information that I'm used to entering. and you've done this in the past, so the intermodal chassis stuff is not new. Enter my GVWR. We can right now bypass the trailer. That's going to change because we have the opportunity to put an estimated GVWR if we do. If we don't know the exact one, the IAC stuff is nothing new. You're used to that, so I'll just do that real quick. It's not a nuance, but just to show you that it works and how it works. It's broken up into two different data entry ports, the prefix and then the number, and it goes out and it grabs my information for me. If you gathered the information some other way, you can select that method like the waterproof container on the vehicle that's not really waterproof. And then the questions that you're used to seeing. And I've got my VIN up here that is red in color, but I'm stubborn, so I'm going to hit save. It says, I don't like that, John. The VIN check is not passing. You have a VIN that's less than 17 digits. It's only 5. It doesn't pass VIN check. Well, software, I know that this is a valid VIN. It's a homemade trailer. This VIN is on the VIN plate. So I'm going to enter it a second time, and I'm going to confirm that it is a valid VIN, and then the software is going to allow you to collect that. So that solves some of those issues with invalid VINs that happen down the road. With the GVWR, the other question that was mentioned, we do have to collect GVWR for all vehicles. Right now, like I said, it's allowing you to leave it blank in trailer, but that's going to change. It's a data quality thing that a lot of people have cried about, talked about, and it's a very valid point that we need to be collecting that GVWR. And since we're allowing you to do it estimated, then it just makes sense to force an entry there. Did I answer that question completely on the VIN and GVWR, Joe?
I think so. I think that's covered everything that was asked. If there's any additional questions on it, please let us know. Nothing in the chat.
Cool, thank you. So again, we can do the same thing with the trailer. PIQ, edit, trash it. I can enter brake data. Notice it wants to make sure I got my brake data. It knows with the level 1, I've got to have brake data. So I'm going to go to the enter brake tool. Notice that we are looking at brake entry by unit. We will also look at it collectively, and as you'll see in a minute. There are a couple of nuances here. You can actually add up to 10 axles per unit. I would hate to inspect that truck. That would be fun. It would take a little while. We'll go to 3. Here's a question that you've never seen on the inspection software, but you've asked it every time you was under a truck. Are there different size air chambers on the same axle? Defaults to no. If you change it to yes, it just opens up the additional chamber side so that you can enter the data where it belongs rather than having to put it in the notes. The steer axle is another business edit nuance that defaults to yes for the drive axle, defaults to no for everything else. This is just another coming business edit. For example, if you've got a trailer that's converted to a full trailer with a dolly converter, then that becomes a steer axle for inoperative brake purposes. So just kind of way to help with that out of service condition. It could be there if you got inoperative brakes on that steer axle of a dolly converter. The brake tool is not a lot different than it was in the past. There is one nuance that you may not have seen, and that's its color coding. We put the brake adjustment limit or below. It'll be green in color. If it's a half a defect, it's yellow in color, and if it's a full defect, it's red. And that is just really a visual indicator to allow people to see, very easily and very quickly when they put their brake measurements in from here that I've got a half a brake versus a full brake. And it kind of really easily shows me when I save it that I've got 1.5 brakes out of adjustment, not 2. And then now here's for the collective part when we enter the brakes for the trailer. And we'll just do it quickly because, again, it's not a nuance. Simply drag and click or whatever you want to call it. Let's make them all good. So now you've got each unit, you've got them all green there. And when you look at the totality of the circumstances, you can see that I've for brake adjustments for the 20% criteria, I've got 1.5 brakes, not 2. So it's just a kind of a visual indicator to help you see what your total situation is and not think that you've got two brakes instead of one. And additionally, there'll be a business edit later on that kind of helps us this. It'll look at the 20% criteria in the background and verify whether there should be an out of service condition or not. Not there yet, but it's one of those things that's coming as we go down the road.
All right, Jamie, here's a question for you on brakes. All right, or John, does it allow recording of long stroke and regular stroke on the same axle? Example, long stroke on the right and regular on the left.
If you had very technically yes and very technically no. Yes and no. So in the grand scheme of things, long stroke is, and as you know, again, not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, as you know, long stroke and regular stroke by definition is not a mismatch. But if you wanted to do that and you wanted to collect them, you could do it this way because all this is allowing the capture tool. So it's a great question, and you can utilize the software to gather that data when you've got long stroke on one side and regular stroke on the other. Great question, and that's your workaround because there's no business edit built right now on this being a mismatch, if that makes sense. Good question. Anything else, Joe?
Nope, that's it for right now.
All right, so let's see, 37 minutes and 56 seconds. We're in good shape. Let's do driver. Let's add a driver, and we're going to run SIDless for you again. Pay attention to what happens to this toolbar. Hit USA, nothing. That's what we need to run SIDless. Hit Mexico. It changes Mexico to state, state to Mexico, because that's what you do when you run a Mexican driver CDL. And when you do Canada, it adds the information that you have to have. And remember, we're going to run SIDless for you. However, I'm in a test database because of PII and such. And I know this guy is in our system. You can see there's also an advanced query, but it's going to run through SIDless for me, and it's going to come back and it's going to provide the information that shows he has prohibited status in a driver alcohol clearinghouse. So you're not going to miss that data anymore because we're running SIDless for you. If he's got prohibited status, it's going to show it. If he doesn't have prohibited status, it just shows nothing, just like SIDless does. It returns it just exactly like SIDless does. Now, the other caveat here is that if you don't have internet connectivity, then you obviously can't run SIDless without internet connectivity. We can't fix that, but we will at least be able to get SIDless stuff for you when we have connectivity. So we've got the information here. This guy should have prohibited status, but they modified the database apparently. It would show prohibited status if he had it right here, right under here in big red letters. I can go in here and add the information. It's got all the information that you're going to need. It returns everything back, endorsements, restrictions, and then all that medical information that you need as well. So everything looks good, and we'll hit save, and I've got my driver there. I can also add a driver manually, just like I add my vehicle manually. I can go over here and hit add driver, and I can put him, I can go in here and put him in manually. Already got him. Let's do this. Today's date is September the 25th, 2020. How is that possible? Well, it doesn't like that because it's asking for the date of birth. I mean, not today's date. I did that on purpose, by the way. So it's looking for the field to be valid. It's wanting to make sure that this guy is a valid age driver. So it's telling me now that he's less than 18 or greater than 90. If I go in here and make him 2013, and that's still less than 21, let's make it 2000. There we go. When I make it over 18, then it goes away. So it just gives us again another data check on a date of birth. And if it's a questionable date of birth, it wants you to enter it twice. So now I've got a driver, I've got a co-driver, I've got the opportunity to do the same thing with him. I can do a previous inspection query. I can edit him or I can remove him. Can't kill him, but you can remove him from your inspection. So now I've got my driver, got my co-driver. Before I do violations, I'm going to go to this Finish tab and this Agricultural Exemption Study. This, and it got this nice little smart cursor that gives us information. This replaces the old special study field. And this is
Hey,
the,
hey, John, before we jump into special studies, we got some CDL questions we should
okie doke,
answer.
okie doke.
Number one, how is a prohibited CDL driver showed when driving a non-CDL truck?
Yeah, so that's a good question. What it's going to do, if he has prohibited status in the database, it's going to show prohibited status because it's just pulling the data down. You will have to be the one driving the violation stuff that says whether he's got a violation or not. If he's obviously driving a non-CDL truck, then he's not in interstate commerce. So you'll have to be the one that drives it. It's just pulling data down, so it's going to show you what it has. Going forward, I can see a business edit being added that says, this guy's driving non-CDL truck, yada yada yada, and actually prompt that information for you. But right now, that business said it's not there, but I can see that coming down the road. It's just pulling down
Another
data.
question.
So, yep, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Will SafeSpect allow an inspector to utilize a scanner to scan a registration or license to auto-populate the information in the system? Or does it all have to be typed in?
It is coming. Scanner functionalities on that list as well. It's I'm not sure where it's at on our list, but it's something that's coming soon. I like to use the word soon. I don't like to give dates because every time I give a date, something happens and I miss the date. So, but yes, scanner functionality is coming. We've talked about that other code thing. I can't remember what it's called that everybody uses. QR code possibilities. You can scan stuff with your phone down the road. But yes, that scanner functionality will be coming. Good question. Thank you.
Will SafeSpec solve the issue of running out-of-state non-CDL licenses? A lot of states won't show up in SID lists, such as Pennsylvania, Florida, etc.
What do you mean won't show? What do you mean won't show up in SID list?
Well, non-CDLs. Yeah,
Oh,
we,
non-CDL.
Yeah,
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 we're
non-CDL.
looking at adding just general driver license search also. We're working with AMVA on that. So that will be a future enhancement also.
Yeah, I did. I missed non-CDL. Yeah. Right now,
No
SID list
worries.
is just SIDless stuff. But yeah, we are looking at ways to try to get the non-CDL information as well. Good
And
question.
yeah, we've got some great questions. I really appreciate you all engagement here. Another good question is, and we've seen this in other locations as well. Going back to location, using the current location feature, it's pinging me in Albany, but I'm currently in Buffalo. And Adam actually responded to that saying, Ryan, I think that's all through the New York State data is being sent through a proxy server in Albany. And then there's a follow-up. Do you know if that is something we'll be able to fix with our IT folks then? More of a
Yeah,
technical
we've
question.
had a couple of states work with that, and we actually use the Google Maps API, and it's going directly from your workstation you're on, whether it be a laptop or a phone, whatever, directly to Google and back. So if your state can work to allow that tunnel through without filtering it through Albany. Not that there's anything wrong with Albany. I'm sure it's a lovely city. Yeah, but.
And Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe specifically, was it Washington State that had that issue off the top of my head?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I believe they figured it out. Maybe we can put them in touch with Kim.
Yeah.
Good, good. Cool. I'm really happy when people follow along and are working on their SafeSpect, so you can have some of these good, real questions you can ask while we have experts on. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's
And,
all we have. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but also just a reminder that you're most likely working in the production environment, so don't submit anything.
Yeah, you can, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's great to follow along and play with it, but if you hit submit, it will go and we'll have to deal with it. All right, can you show us an example of a passenger CMV inspection?
Yeah, let me finish this part and then I'll go back and change it
Okay.
actually.
Yep,
Yep.
perfect.
Got that on my mind. So this agricultural exemption study. This is a the federal study field that replaces the old special studies that can be built by FMCSA. But there's also a state-specific field that you can build, and this one is just built in pretty easily here. But basically, what this does is it allows you to build it allows you to build questions. For example, this is like the old local fields that was in Safety Net that you'd build in Safety Net and export to Aspen, which was a pain in the neck. But this basically gives the administrator the ability to build questions limited to your imagination. Just an example is say you have a bunch of widgets that are built. You have a widget factory in your state, and for whatever reason, you're having a bunch of widget wrecks in one of your regions in New York, and we'll say it's region 6, and you want for a month you want to inspect every widget truck that goes through um, region 6 and check the brakes on those trucks. So you can write a specific question for a specific period of time for a specific region to collect specific data. And you can do that anytime you want for whatever region you want. And then you can have the ability to get that information out to do research, build reports and stuff. This state fields thing is one of the things that I really, really love. It just gives you an opportunity to gather whatever information you want, and you can see you can just gather anything you want and do research on it, and it's a neat tool. It is a really neat tool. All right. So lastly, I'm going to go back before I hit violations. I'm going to go back to driver, and I passed this on purpose so you see that red button. Let's see. I'm not done with this yet. I got to do something else. So I go to driver, and then we've got the eRods functionality. If this driver doesn't have eRods, not required, you can select no ELD required, and you can put in here whatever reason. These are straight from regulation. Maybe he could not transfer it because he hadn't no internet connectivity, so you can put a note here, driver could not transfer. And in that way, it will allow you to bypass the ELD requirement, because otherwise I can enter my file comment, the same comment you enter into the driver's ELD to transfer his ELD to eRods through web services. And when I do that, when I enter that file comment, it's going to go out to eRods and it's going to grab a pre-screen of his log activity. And it's going to give us some just high level questions. Again, we got to remember that stuff that comes out of eRods is possible violations that need to be verified. So we've got that information. The other thing we have to do is click on this icon, and it will take us to web eRods where we can log on to eRods web services online and check that driver's ELD specifically. So we do make you go there. I'm trying. I saw your email this morning, Jamie. I'll make sure if I think I've already written that ticket, but I'll check to have actually access your desktop version of eRods instead of the online version. Because if you've got eRods on your desktop, you probably more likely want to do it there. anyway, because it's got a little bit more functionality and it keeps you from having to go into the web. So, but right now we do at least force you to go to eRods. We do this pre-screening for you, and it will have all your driver's information and stuff down here as well. So that takes us to eRods. We've gathered that information. We've gathered all this information. Everything is good, but we have not entered any violations. So let's talk about violations for a minute. And I'm going to slow down here for a little bit. This is our biggest hurdle for a lot of people because the violation codes have changed significantly. They were developed by a CVSA committee of SMEs that did two things. One, the violation codes are built to be more specific and in line with the regulations to drill down to violations more specifically. Secondly, they're also built to hard code in the out of service conditions for out of service yes or no based on what the violation is. And as you know, there are a lot of violations that don't rise to the level of a violation until it meets the out of service condition. So you can't take one of those violations and change the out of service condition to no, not out of service, because you want to make it a violation even though it's not a violation. So the violation codes are a lot more than they were. They're different than what you've memorized. And there's several ways to find these violations. I want to show you a couple different methods. We have broken them up into categories for the most part. For example, if I click on fuel, and you'll see here that this blue bar has a straight truck. If I want to put this on the chassis, I can click on that arrow and drop down and make the active vehicle. The active vehicle is in that blue banner. The active vehicle, the intermodal, and I can put it on that. I'm going to go back to the straight truck. So again, this is one of those instances where you have to drive the software. But when I selected fuel, and you'll notice that every one of these violations is something that has fuel in it. And I go down here and I'm going to select a dripping fuel leak. And it's going to give me the out of service condition that is hard coded yes, because a dripping fuel leak is out of service. So it hard codes it. I can't change it. Gives me the additional information. You've got to put in the driver specific information. This information up here is canned. It is not editable, just like it's not in Aspen. And this vehicle-specific information provides more information to the driver, carrier, CL guy, and such. I'm going to get an error here. The software is not going to let me proceed because I did not fill in the post-crash stuff. There's our post-crash stuff. Was it caused by the crash? Did it exist prior to the crash? Or I'm unable to determine. I click unable to determine, hit save. And now I've got my violation up there for my dripping leak that's on the driver front side and is out of service until. And there's the violation. There's the smart part of the violation. And there's the unit number that it's on. It's out of service. Its post-crash is unknown, verification unknown, so on and so forth. So that's one way to do the violations. You can search for them there. And again, we've got the same thing with the drop-down arrow here to change vehicles if we want. Here's the tool that I really like, and it's just search violations. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that little tab there, and you'll notice that it defaults to vehicle here. There's basically different categories than you've seen before. You're historically used to seeing driver and vehicle. We put everything under driver and vehicle. We now have the ability to put violations on the carrier. So you have to decide which category of violation you're looking for. For example, if I type in 172, I'm on vehicle, you're not going to see anything come up because I'm on a vehicle. If I change it to group and type in 172, now you'll see everything. Jamie, I can't remember if I talked to you about this or not, but I have a strong thought that we need to change this to default and to group as a default always, and let people drill down to the specific categories they want. I remember when we built rims, I was having a similar issue with people not being able to find violations, and I went in and had our vendor change it to group. Just came across, thought about this while we was at the reception the other night talking to Kim Hill.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that more later. So anyway, If you have group, then you'll be able to get all of the violations that are in the category, but just selecting like vehicle helps me drill down. For example, 393.205C. If I click on 393.205C, it's going to bring me the violations that exist for 393.205C. This is the violation you're very familiar with, I'm sure. Notice the suffix on the violation code, they're different. Notice that it lists them as critical violations, which is important because if you put a critical violation on a unit, you know you cannot put a CVSA decal on that unit. So the software, if you put this critical violation on a unit, it's going to deactivate the ability to enter a CVSA decal. Descriptions are pretty much the same, but to the far right here, you see these out of service levels. Out of service for levels 1 through 5, out of service only for level 6. So this is where you have to drive the software again. You know what condition you have. If you've got one loose wheel fastener on an 8 fastener system, that doesn't rise to the out of service condition. So you've got to make sure you use this bottom one instead of this top one. Because if you use the top one, it's going to default to out of service yes. And you can't change that. So you still have to drive the software. Again, using the tool to help drill down to the violations is an easy way. Using the tool that tells you it's not out of service except for level 6 gives you the ability, now it defaults to no, gives you the ability to enter the violations that you'd actually have in place for you. And you have to drive the software. The other nice thing that you can do search-wise, and I'm still on vehicle, is you can use keywords. Like, for example, air leak. I type in air leak. It's going to bring up all the violations that have air leak. Two of them are 393.45s. Two of them are 396.3A1s. And because those are not violations that are specific to regulation, they were developed by committee, so they are 396.3A1s. You're used to these. Again, I'm not going to beat you to death on things that you're used to, but the key here is, again, one of them's not out of service except for level 6. The other one's out of service for every other level. You've got to select the proper violation. Audible air leak in a brake chamber. It's not out of service except for level 6. Any air leak not attributed to the brake or suspension system. Again, a violation created by 396.3A1 because any air leak is a violation, but it's not out of service unless it fails that air loss rate test, right? So you still have to be the one that drives the software to gather the violations that you need and then put in the violation specific. This, again, I'm just going to reiterate, is the biggest nuance. It's not really a software issue as much as it is a nuance to the violations. And it's the same thing with driver. When I go put in the driver violations, if I put in a 14-hour rule violation, it's going to bring up all those. I'm going to put in one here. I'm going to try to put one in on a passenger. I haven't forgot that passenger question. So I'm going to go down here and see if I can find one on a passenger vehicle. And it's going to say, you can't do that, John. You got a property carrying vehicle. You got to use a property carrying violation. All right, well, I'll change that and I'll go up here to the proper carrier. Notice here, everything day-wise is activated, where in vehicle violations, only the last day is activated. Is the current driver in violation? Currently, yes, and it defaults to out of service. If he's not in violation currently, then he's not out of service. So the software helps guide you with some of the information that you need. The other thing that's neat here, there's the violation date. It's going to populate for you in the notes. There's my violation date for 9/25. Well, I also find a violation on 9/22, and I can go down here and it opens up the tool to put 9/22, and it puts the date in there. It's not out of service. And if I save it, and I go to my violations, we'll see that it populated 2 driver violations for 14-hour violations, and it put each one of them on the different day, just as it should, because each violation on a different day is a separate violation. So again, using this tool right here, this search violation tool with driver as well, you can type in keywords and such and help navigate to the violations that you need to get. Again, it's got the same information. This is traffic enforcement violation. We talked about that earlier with the traffic enforcement icon. and it gives us again the out of service stuff here as well. So you drive the software and you tell us or tell the software what your violation needs to be. Again, this is the biggest nuance. This is the biggest heartburn that a lot of people have. There it is, collecting my violations. I can sort them up here, or I can sort them by default, like I said, in my own settings if I want to have that default a certain way. All right. So I've completed.
We got
Yep.
we got another question. This is something that we've got before, and we'll probably lean on John Lohmeyer a little bit to help answer this too. We have state-specific violations in our Aspen. Under the state violation tab, that would data mine by our admins, specifically PVI vehicles, weight violations, and other violations of state laws. Will those state violations, specific violations, be able to be input into SafeSpect? And then
Yes.
building on that question, this question is maybe for our New York State DOT admin, but do we need to rebuild anything for the data mining of state tab violations, unsent DVRs, etc.? Or will our current system still data mine the data? So state violation codes.
So yes, you will be today. You cannot, but you will be able to enter state violation codes, so you can collect your own state data. Again, that's one of those customizable state things that we have not had the vendor finalize yet, but that will be able. And once you export the data, you'll have basically you can download an API to the data. You can download it into Excel, whatever you want. Then you'll have that data that you can data mine however you want, and not just your state field data, but you can query and build reports out of anything that's on the inspection report. See if I answered your question for him.
I'm not seeing a follow-up in chat. Just go off mute if that has a follow-up to that. If not, oh yes, it does. All right, thank you. Appreciate
Awesome.
that. Thanks,
Great
Ryan.
question. I mean, this group's full of great questions. All right, so I talked about notes already. I talked about adding the co-inspector. We talked about the attachments. We have finished this inspection. I've decided I am going to now submit it. So I go through it, and I'll go through all the buttons here. One thing I did not do, I know, there it says verified date and time is accurate. I told you it would ask me that. I get to here, and I can go down through here, and I know I haven't done something. Here's a high-level view of it. I know I haven't done something, I'm not going to do it. I can look at a preview report. You can look at the preview. You can't print it from here, but you can look at it to make sure everything is perfect in the way that you want it. And then you can go down here to click submit, and it's not going to let me do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm stubborn. So I hit submit. It says there are no critical violations on one of your units. You need to enter a CVSA decal or tell us why one was not given. So if I go up here to the top, you can see CVSA decal for Unit 1 is deactivated. Cargo seal replace is deactivated because I haven't removed one. If I tell it I removed one over here, now it opens it up, gives me the opportunity to enter one. But down here on Unit 2, we'll see that CVSA decal is activated. So I've either got to enter a CVSA decal or tell them why there was none. Maybe there were no decals available, or maybe other, and I need to type in a reason why. Ran out. And now if I go, again, I got a high level view of my data. I can look at it in a paper view here, like I said. Now I'm going to go ahead and submit it again. It allows me to change my time up to 20 minutes to give me time to finish it, take the inspection out to the carrier, let him sign it, go over it with him, so on and so forth. And I'll change that. I'm going to submit the inspection. Notice it says it's been submitted. There's my final number. Remember, I told you it doesn't create the final number until you submit it. There's my start and end time. It tells me it's been submitted. I can view it here. I can print it here. For the sake of time, I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'll see that inspection now shows in my dashboard as being submitted. This test database is a little slow at times because it's constantly being worked on. And I still haven't forgot the passenger carrier, by the way. And once it's been submitted, I can go change to, actually, I'm just going to do that right now. I can go change to the approval role, and we'll see that the inspection comes up in approval role, and the approver can either submit it as an approved inspection, the approver can edit it and modify anything on the inspection he wants, or he can reject it, as you saw the rejection in my home button, and reject it and send a note to the inspector saying you need to fix something. So just for kicks and giggles, I'm actually going to exit the software. You notice I just clicked on X. I didn't save anything other than submit that inspection. I'm going to go back in here and open the software again. And I'll go back to my inspector row, and we'll see there's that inspection right there, number 20. If I change and go to the admin approval row rather than admin approval row, there it is right there waiting for me to work on it. It tells me I've got to work on it. I can open it up. I can edit it like I said. I can view it. I can print it. I can look at the notes, or I can approve it or reject it. I'm just going to decline it for now. It's going to want in a note, fix last name. I'm going to decline it. It's going to tell me that it's been rejected. I'm going to go back to my inspector row, and there's my inspection that has been rejected. Actually, I know what I should have said the message. I can open it up. I can look at the note, and that note says it's been rejected. Notice the red icon. That note says changes to a passenger carrier inspection. Oh, okay. I can do that. So I can go back and change this vehicle. I can edit the vehicle, the passenger carrier, bus, change the make. I'm going to delete this vehicle because that bus is not pulling an intermodal chassis. And now I've got a passenger carrier bus. And if I go to look at my driver violations, and go to next, and submit. There it is. It's now been resubmitted as a passenger carrier. I don't know if that is what you want to see on the passenger carrier, but there are businesses in the system built along the passenger carrier as well. Last but not least, if I went to my inspections list and that inspection was approved, it would show up here in here as an approved inspection instead of a submitted or draft inspection. Oh, I know what we were going to do. Pardon me, let I switch rows one more time. I forgot number 20. There's the attachment screen. There's my theft report that I attached. I can download it and look at it as an approver. The only question that I don't know is if I do a PIQ, will it show up? So there's my e-NIBRS report from my government vehicle being stolen. So again, that's not on the production version yet, but it's coming soon. I wanted you to see that. I wanted to see if it would show up, actually, if they got that done right. And that's cool. They've got that working well. Let's see, what else? I think that's it, Joel. Pause for questions because it's already 12:01. It's the end of the noon hour.
Yeah, we got one more follow-up question, and that is, how do we enter citation numbers after tickets are issued for violations?
Yep. It. I'll edit this. I need to show this anyway. So if I want to edit an inspection, I can do that, and it will ask me why. But for violations, if I enter a violation, I can go up here. I'm just going to go and edit this one. I can put in the citation right here, and I can put in the citation number right there. So you tell it that the violation resulted in a citation, and you can add that citation number. That citation number will appear on the general violation screen right here. Violation resulted in citation. Add the number. Good question.
Another one is, carrier has been added to the list of parties. Which violations would be attributed to the carrier?
Good question. The administrative violations, things like UCR, most hazmat violations, some of them attributed to vehicle, but it's mostly administrative stuff.
Out of service and things like that. Failure to register properly.
Most of the stuff, it just makes sense. That always drove me crazy. Why are we putting this on? Why are we putting this on the driver and writing him a ticket for it when it's really the carrier violation? Write the driver a ticket if you have to, but the violation should go on the carrier. But yeah, most of them are common sense, I think. Good question, so. What else?
That is it in the chat. So let's open it up. Oh, we got one more. Who do we work with to tailor the program to meet our needs? Example, auto approve, adjust start and end times to account for crashes, post crash. We can talk about that. And the last question, I love Adams. When can we start using this?
Well,
So
auto approve, that
yeah.
is, well, first of all, we stopped using the term approve. It's publish. That's what that role actually does. It publishes it. We frown upon auto approve, but we are making some changes to allow a state to go that path if they so choose. That's coming up in a month or so. I think we're having that. Adjust the start and end times. You can right now up to 20 minutes before and after. Anything beyond that, it's a policy question. We're waiting on answers from our program offices about whether we can allow that to change anymore. And when can you start using it? That's up to your manager.
Hey guys, I'll give you a good example on the adjusting starting and end times. We had I was on the national news. We had a fatal coach rollover on Thursday.
Yep.
NTSB is involved, and the post crash is being done today. So it may have started on Thursday when they put their generic information in, and they're gonna end it today. So we don't want the report showing that he was working on it from Thursday, for 72 hours or whatever it may be. So how would we handle that?
Yeah. So did they already go ahead and start it?
I don't know if they did or not, but in some cases they may.
Yeah. So we would right now we would have to fix that in the background.
Yeah, a lot of times they will start it when they can,
Yeah,
And
that's
then
true.
as they're waiting, they might wait for information, whatever that may be. Authority checks, subpoenas on information where they might add violations later. So, we don't want that inspection open the whole time.
Right. We're talking about some different ways to deal with time. We can probably talk that between the admin's leadership.
So for the time being, we should use Aspen for those type of reports then?
No, I would say, you could go ahead and do it now, and we can help you modify that in the background for something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
That's few and
Okay.
far between.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope that helps. Another couple of questions. Is there a way to manually populate state violations until we can get them imported? And also, had to step away for a minute. Did you show the printed report?
Yes.
For state violations right now, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but when you use state violations right now in Aspen, they're actually tied to a federal violation code in the back end. What I would do temporarily is find the closest federal violation code, and then in your violation description, put in your New York State statute or violation code as a temporary workaround. Silence is acceptance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, does that help answer the question?
There's another question in here, Joel. If we start using the system on a test basis, do we need to account for these in our Aspen program also, or how do we change our inspection number in SafeSpect to make sure we're not duplicate inspection numbers? So for this one, you want to use one program or the other because they're both, if you use them in both places, they will both end up in Safer and MCMIS. So that can be a problem. You just want to use one or the other. And as far as duplicate inspection numbers, so I'm going to answer this question two ways, and please don't think I'm trying to say use double speak, but so the SafeSpect and I believe MCMIS too, Jamie, right? There's no such thing as a duplicate inspection number. Because the inspection number in the background also accounts for the date and the time that the inspection was completed. So if there is one that is technically duplicate, it is keeping them separate because of the date and time in the background. On the other side of that, you can have your admin actually adjust your inspection start number. And if you do that, we just suggest that you pad that number just a little bit, just in case there's something that comes up and for some reason you use Aspen in the background so you're not duplicating numbers. So I hope that even though there's no duplicate numbers.
Hey, John, can I add to that?
Sure.
I just want to just mention to all the state DOT people on the call, you guys were selected as testers. So as Adam questioned, when can we start use this? You guys should be using this moving forward. Aspen, as John mentioned, Adrian or Rich, they've already set up our system, I believe. They got your current Aspen number and they added maybe 100 or 200 to it. and just in case you have to use Aspen. But we're going to start using it, not immediately, but it sounds like Adrian and Rich are going to chat offline with these guys. So once we get the green light from Adam and Rich, then all of us should be using SafeSpect moving forward. Again, unless there's an issue, then you can switch to Aspen, but you should only have one report per inspection, if that clears things up.
Yeah, I think the only hiccup would be the location. But I mean, if they can manually put in the location, I think we can start using it now.
Hey, John, did you show them how on the map you can adjust where you are, pinpoint where you are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I pinged my location. I think in same as everybody else, it's all pinging in Albany because we're running through the network. And what's the best option? To physically put in where we are, or just pick that truck up and move it to where we are?
I kind of like myself. I'm kind of lazy. I just drag it on the map and ping it as close as I can to where I really am.
Did we get this last question here? Can you hear me, Jamie?
Yes.
Okay.
State tabs for buses. Okay, state tabs for bus inspections. Okay, so that would be under your locally defined fields or state defined fields. You set up what information you need in there. Can make it a lot more specific than what you currently have in Aspen right now. And I assume you do those level 7 inspections also. So um, you got two ways to attack those.
Can we mirror the state tab violations that we have in Aspen right now? Can we transfer those over to SafeSpec?
Yes, you can. You can't really transfer them, but you set them up the same, sort of the same way. The only difference being that terminology wise, in safety net, those are defined in pages, like you set up a state field page. Within SafeSpect, it's a category. And, is that right? Category or group? Forgot. Um, Let me share my screen here real quick. And oh, what the heck did I do there? Okay.
Hey, Justin, Rich, can I just put a little input on this from our previous conversations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So for everyone listening here who weren't in some of the beginning meetings but are on the tester list, I put in numbers for our SafeSpec to start with, and I added, just as it was indicated, a couple hundred numbers depending on who the people are to each one of our present numbers as run in Aspen. And I did a double check just this past week. We only have 2 of them that are getting up on the potential of crossing over. In regards to the questions involving passenger vehicles or oversized, overweight, or other violations that are state-specific tabs that we have in Aspen that are not set up in SafeSpec, the mindset was, by putting the gap in there, if I, as an inspector, start inspecting vehicles, I'm going to use SafeSpec. If I find that for whatever reason that violation or that vehicle cannot be properly documented in SafeSpec in its present standing, I would revert back to my Aspen program and write the report so we can properly document whether it's passenger violations, size, weight violations, so on and so forth. And because we have the gap between those two systems, this will not cause an overwrite of either one of the systems. So let's say I start utilizing inspections tomorrow and I'm doing we'll start with level 3s just to get comfortable with using SafeSpec. However, my 4th violation in, I stop a vehicle that has oversized, overweight violations. I would not write that inspection report in SafeSpec. I would revert back to Aspen to write that report so that I can properly document the violations. And then once that's done and I move on to my next vehicle, I would once again move back to SafeSpec. Rich, Justin, that sound correct based on our original conversations?
Yeah, it definitely does, Adrian. Although it sounds like if we can add our state tab violations, we may not have to encounter that.
Yes, and that is correct. But at the time that this was discussed back in June, that was not it was still in development for that purpose. That's why we kind of left the gaps in there to allow us to still effectively do our inspections versus letting stuff start to float out there because SafeSpec did not support it yet.
Right. Yep, I agree.
Okay, for your state-specific field that don't have any showing up for you yet, but in the staging environment, we've got this Georgia Department of Testing SafeSpec, and go over here to their state-specific tab, and this is the setup page. We have these set up like this would be the equivalent of a page in SafetyNet and Aspen. This one here, vehicle data. This one here, CVSA Infosys. I just created that the other day at CVSA. And driver data. So to modify this, you would come in here and the categories. That's how they're set up, categories instead of pages. So there's the category for vehicle data, and it's requesting a character field for vehicle color, a yes/no field for has it had a state inspection and when the inspection date was. And what is really nice is that you can make these fields required. I'm going to show it on all 7 levels of inspection. I don't want it on all 7 levels. I don't want it on 6 or 4. And then I'm going to require it on level 1 and level 5, for instance. And then do you want to show it on the inspection report? Yes or no? And of course you have to give it a name. And field description is important because this is what causes that pop-up description to show. So you'll be as explicit as possible. Please enter the information listed. And with the caveat that if you enter these today, the earliest they will show up is a little after midnight Eastern time tonight. You can set the date in the future for that field to appear. It has to be at least the next calendar day. I could set it to start January 1st of 2024. Also, if you know in advance when you're going to stop collecting that data, you can set that date into the future or as early as the next calendar date also. So that's how the state field works, quick and dirty.
So Joel, that's good. That helps with our state tab. But one of the things that we were just talking about, we also have in our current Aspen in the violations section, we have a state violations tab. Are we able to add something similar in SafeSpect?
That's not enabled yet. We've got that on our high priority list.
Okay.
Any other questions?
One other question just came in. When is the end date for Aspen? So the end date for Aspen is December 31st of this year.
Yes. The viewing will start on January 2nd and the burial will be on January 4th.
So if I were to go in and add locations and stuff like that as an admin, it would be after midnight that it would push out the 14 testers that we have?
I think the locations are immediate. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are because that's just a database that's updated.
What about like custom violations? Like we had 392 violations and we referenced state laws and regulations. Would that also push out to everybody?
No, that's not enabled yet. That's a feature coming very soon.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Apologize, we're running way over. All right.
Thanks.
Well, okay,
Thanks,
Lauren.
John, Jamie, Joel, everybody. We appreciate it. Both Johns. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This is, I'll steal some of Joel's lines, but, this is not the last conversation we're going to have. This is, just the beginning. So we certainly appreciate your time. And we're excited to have you on and excited to keep working with you on SafeSpect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.